This is why so many younger Australians are turning to shares and super as their primary wealth engine instead, because you can start investing with $100, but you cannot buy 1% of a house. So what is the real answer to the question we started with? How long does it actually take? Based on realistic combinations of these three paths, employer super, personal investing, and property, most Australians who are deliberate about their money, who start in their 20s or early 30s, and who consistently invest a meaningful portion of their income, tend to cross the $1 million mark somewhere in their late 40s to mid-50s. Some get there faster, particularly dual-income households who bought property early and also invest aggressively outside super. Others, especially those who start late or rely purely on minimum super contributions, may not reach it until much closer to retirement age, if at all. There is another reason nobody talks about, and it has nothing to do with math. It is psychology. Australians who reach $1 million in net wealth are rarely the ones who found some secret high-return investment. They are usually the ones who simply avoided the common traps that quietly drain wealth over time, constantly switching strategies whenever the news gets scary, taking on high-interest consumer debt for things that lose value the moment you buy them, or panic selling investments during a downturn instead of holding steady. Every time someone reacts emotionally to short-term market noise, they interrupt the compounding process and effectively reset the clock. The people who reach millionaire status early are frequently the most boring investors in the room. They pick a sensible strategy, and they simply do not touch it, year after year, regardless of what the headlines say. Here's an advanced insight most finance content skips over entirely. Becoming a millionaire is not actually about hitting some magic number. $1 million in superannuation, locked away until your 60s, behaves completely differently to $1 million in shares you can access anytime, which behaves completely differently to $1 million of equity sitting inside your family home. The real goal is not the number itself. It is having enough accessible, working wealth to give you options, the option to work less, the option to retire early, the option to weather a financial storm without panic. Here's a bonus tip that almost nobody applies early enough. Diversify the type of wealth you are building, not just the assets within it. Relying entirely on your home is risky if the property market in your specific area underperforms. Relying entirely on super is risky because you cannot touch it for decades. Relying entirely on shares outside super means missing out on the tax advantages super offers. The Australians who build wealth fastest tend to be doing all three at once, even if only in small amounts, because each one is compounding quietly in the background while they focus on their actual life. Now let's think about where this is heading. Interest rates have been volatile over the past few years, and that affects both property values and the returns inside super funds. Inflation continues to eat away at cash sitting idle in low-interest savings accounts, which is exactly why so many financial experts stress investing rather than simply saving. At the same time, the compulsory super rate has now reached its legislated maximum of 12%, which means every working Australian is automatically building more wealth through their job than previous generations did, even if they never open an investment app in their life. Combine that with a growing population of professionals working in high-demand industries like technology and healthcare, and it becomes clear why UBS expects the number of Australian millionaires to keep climbing for years to come. So what should you actually take away from? First, time matters more than the size of your first contribution. Start now, even if it is small. Second, do not rely on employer super contributions alone if your goal is to reach $1 million before retirement age, because the data shows most people fall short doing that. Third, if property is part of your plan, understand that the earlier you enter the market, the more time compounding has to work in your favor. But if the entry point feels out of reach right now, shares and super can absolutely get you there without it. And finally, remember that the $1 million number is not the finish line. It is simply the point where money starts working harder for you than you work for it. Let's bring this back to where we started. Almost 2 million Australians already live this reality, and most of them are not extraordinary people. They are ordinary workers who made consistent decisions over a long period of time and let compounding quietly do the heavy lifting in the background. The path is not fast, and it is rarely glamorous, but it is remarkably predictable if you understand the three engines involved: super, investing, and property, and you give at least one of them enough time to grow. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what building real wealth actually looks like in Australia, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this one, because there is a lot more to unpack when it comes to money in this country. Drop a comment and let me know, based on everything you just heard, how old do you think you will be when you hit your first million? And if you know